Hey guys, this is Bam here, and welcome to Coach's Corner, where we're going to be talking about a slew of things, all about Smash Ultimate and just bettering your game, understanding the meta and what's going on, and of course you gotta have some of the great minds of Smash in order to make that happen. And of course, as always, I got the co-hosts here. You got Ramses, and I got my boy Tony. How you guys doing today, man?
Doing well, man. Thanks for asking. How about yourself, man?
We chilling, man. We living, Happy New Year. Just starting it off right. We've had like a
You.
host of things going on, man, and I'm excited, dude. Like offline is here. We got Genesis on the horizon, and it's good. I think it's
Well,
time to
sort
see.
of.
Yeah, a little
Offline
bit.
is sort of here.
Sort
Sort of
of,
here.
sort
I
of.
don't know, man.
Question:
You know how it is. Sometimes you
Omicron,
just get
Deltacron.
stuck with commentating every single event under the sun.
Yeah, sometimes.
Like bands travel all over the country.
The BAM struggle, dude. I
Yeah.
have too many events, man. I have no time to record.
What is happening, dude?
I gotta fly.
Come on, man.
Nah, that's all good.
Yeah,
I'm happy
but
to be here, man. Thanks for inviting me.
of course, man.
Likewise, I'm honored to be here, especially with you two. It's always nice to be around people who really know the game and talk and learn things. Definitely looking forward to learning some stuff today.
What would you say is the reason that Leo is finding success with Byleth then? Because Byleth is notoriously slow. She has a good dash attack, right? But dash attack, pretty committal. And like you said yourself, if someone's waiting for the second tempo, like a dash attack could be, these are very much open. So what's your take on that?
So my perspective on Leo's dash attack.
Leo's dash attack.
Byleth, yes,
It
Leo's
is
dash
something.
attack. Well, to be fair, Byleth has one of the best dash attacks in the game, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Like the speed and both the horizontal and vertical range on it, very high. It's a KO move. It just does everything you need it to do in a dash attack, other than be safe. But it's also pretty much the only poking move that Byleth has that isn't safe. So for Byleth, if you are doing anything to avoid the dash attack, you're basically setting up for the short hop in pressure, and you can react to Byleth's short hop, but you can't react fast enough to actually start up your own initiative. So one of the things that's very popular in especially like mid-level Smash is to use full hops, and the reason for that is it will go over your opponent's high-low mix-ups, and generally what it's going to lead you to is if they whiffed something, you get to start up a full hop aerial, which is going to have the 15% differential there added to it. And so you are going to start a stronger version of your aerial pressure on them. It's probably going to be a high aerial, but there's a very realistic chance that you can either whiff punish them or that you can take your time and drift out so that you're getting a lower connection. And to be clear on what I mean by lower aerial, you can hit the top of somebody's shield and it will prevent them from jumping out of shield to dodge the attack. But if you do so, the frame advantage is going to add on how many frames it takes you to drift down and actually land to start your landing leg from there.
Mm-hmm.
So your aerial is going to be less safe on shield than it probably looks if you just look at the frame data on whatever tool you're using to find that frame data. It's part of the reason why the ultimate training mod is as useful as it is, because it gives you practical results.
Right.
So for Leo in particular, all of his pressure relies on you doing something like holding shield or being minus in frame advantage. And so he uses dash attack as a means of punishing you if you are trying to play faster than Byleth can handle. And then Byleth's backdash is still a backdash, but it's very short distance. So It usually places him so that if you do try and do anything other than overshoot Byleth's backdash, he's going to be perfectly positioned to whiff punish.
Okay,
So
so
Tony.
yeah, what do you?
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
yeah, no,
Take
Ram,
that.
no, Ramsey. I was gonna just
okay.
actually throw it to you. I want to hear from you,
Yeah.
like why you think Byleth is so good in this current meta right now.
So I'll give you my opinion, and then I'll respond to what Tony said, right? So I think Byleth kind of exemplifies winning the mid range, which I think is the most important range in this game, right? Because long range, in most situations, okay, Bam, tell me, if I say long range character, who do you think of?
Shulk.
Shulk? I mean, like longer range than that. Longer range than that.
Long range, super long range.
Yeah.
Min Min.
Okay, so Min Min. If Min Min is at the long range, can she mix you up?
Not really.
Not really, right? So what Min Min does is she uses the long range to make it harder for you to get into the mid range, and then she mixes you up in the mid range, right? And that's how every long range character functions. Another long range, Samus, right? Samus, if Samus is camping you at long range and you get hit, you're sleeping, right?
Mhm.
What Samus does at long range is she gets her charge shot, then she gets into the mid range, and then she hits you. So like long range in this game is used to set up a better mid range. It's almost always the truth because in the mid range things are not reactable. When things are reactable in long range, you can always counteract it, right? And then like close range, like the limitation of close range is that you have to get through mid range to get there. So if you're playing Mario, like good character, don't get me wrong, but in a meta game where a lot of the good characters are mid range characters because of how important being unreactable is, it's hard to get into close range, right? So Byleth is kind of like the perfect mid range character. Well, not perfect. I'm not gonna say perfect. She's a really solid mid range character. Because of what Tony said, right? She has the walling tools with forward air, back air. You can react to her jumps, but you cannot interrupt them. Partially because of the range, right? She has, even more range than Lucina. Way less floaty too. Very similar to Sephiroth in that regard. And she has a really good dash attack. A decent walling tilt as well with down tilt and to some degree forward tilt. So she controls the mid range very well. And what you can see Leo do, and this is what I think separates Leo from the rest, is like he's very methodical about his situations. He basically says, if I'm in a bad situation, I'm never going to play it. I'm going to get into a better situation. And by consistently doing that and coupling that with a character that has such a binary game plan, where it's like, if I'm in the mid-range, I'm really strong. If I'm not in mid-range, not quite what I want to be. It just kind of like accentuates its strengths. And you can see like Byleth controls the mid-range and then he just uses it in there and like empty lands and stuff like that to kind of like mix you up into close range, right? And I think where Byleth in that sense is like Luster, that I would like to hear Tony's thoughts on, is that she's slow. So a lot of slow characters, they compensate for being slow with good dash attacks, right? So another good example of a slow character who becomes fast is Snake, right? So Snake's in the corner, character slow as hell, but he dash attacks out of the corner, suddenly he's in center stage. You cannot do much about that, right? But the risk reward of a dash attack is never solid. And I would say like maybe Byleth is a little bit better than average, but you don't want to rely on a dash attack.
Yeah.
So I think like what I would like to see and what I think Spargo does very well against Byleth, for example, is he's just like, okay, I'm gonna try to outrun you, and if you start using dash attack to try to challenge me, I'm just gonna play the risk reward of the dash attack. I'm gonna flip that coin. I'll play I'm gonna lose sometimes. I'm gonna get hit by dash attack every so often, but I'm gonna punish it hard enough so that every time you use it, you're gonna feel like you're gonna second guess like, do I want to dash attack here? Because I know if I'm wrong, it could mean curtains.
Yeah.
And there are some tricks that Leo uses to compensate for that. And I'm curious to see what Tony's take on that is.
So my perspective on this is that I've actually been studying both Spargo and Leo, specifically their interactions and how it's evolved over the past 6 months or so. The interesting insight that I received from Leo and watching Leo is that when he originally started the match, he would consistently undershoot at Mithra in an attempt to essentially bait out Mithra's dash attack to just true punish.
Yep.
And then he would do what Bam said earlier, where you just undershoot, you bait out a response, and then you shield, and then you punish it out of shield, because most burst options tend to be fairly unsafe on block, like dash attacks in general. It's one of the defining features of the move, and there's exceptions, obviously, but they just tend to be unsafe. So my perspective of that is that as the set has continued on, both players have drifted away from both undershooting and overshooting, and specifically are striking at where they go. And I think this is best evidenced at the just opening second of every single set they play. You will see the mix up on where Leo is swinging at and what he's specifically trying to bait out from Spargo. And essentially, every single time, Spargo is winning. I'd say he wins like 80% of the first interactions versus Leo. And so Leo will undershoot, and then Spargo will dash attack him anyways. So my perspective on that is that Spargo's answer to that is to just be faster.
Yeah.
So he's the player who manages to look at Leo and say, you can't outspeed me, and then say, yes, I can. So I think Byleth's speed does very much come into play against Leo, and I think this is best evidenced in their set at Smash World Tour, in which Leo actually started out Aegis, as I recall, versus Spargo. And so I think that their set prior to that was just kind of, I believe it was a main stage.
Mm-hmm.
at that point, Leo just kind of conceded, okay, you're fast enough. I really just play to cheese you out because I'm not comfortable in the neutral anymore. And so me seeing Leo start Aegis against Spargo, to me, felt like a concession to that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, no, yeah, 100%. And we've seen him kind of go back and forth there with that too. I think Byleth is really interesting because I think to Ramses' point, like obviously the character is like incredible when it comes to the mid range. Obviously, it's not just the fact that the character has that strong mid range, but the character also has some solid outside of the aerials, some solid tilts and stuff in that situation too. Like the fact that you can get down tilt and actually get confirms off it, I think is really, really nice. Obviously, landing fair is really great. Knowing that you can, if you have to have added weight to that option too, if they go for like a short hop bear, because bear literally kills from like it'd be like center stage or whatever, something ridiculous because of that trajectory. Like it's something that you actually like you have to put so much initial like weight on because of that option being such a strong tool that can just outright kill you in a poking situation. And then obviously we already know with Nair and the different like ways that you can land with Nair and get come from there. Yeah, but Byleth's really interesting because I feel that Byleth as a character, when you're looking at Byleth and then you're looking at all the other characters in the meta, I feel like one of the biggest things that Byleth does is just like there's certain nuances in the game that Byleth just doesn't really need to deal with as much, right? Like, and I think that is that to me is like I think is so powerful, and it's funny because it seems like even with Tweak initially when he had picked up Diddy Kong, it kind of reminded me that like some of these guys are looking at characters that are trying to skip certain segments of the game so they can mitigate that, and I can just all I do is like I'm gonna play this mix-up spot and you can't really do anything much about it. You don't have like your like response to that is, oh, I'm just not gonna engage. It's like, well, cool, because that does nothing to me, so I don't care. So like let's just go on to the next thing. And it seems like there's a lot of that there. I want to ask you guys about that.
Yeah, I think the community perspective on that was like if you don't have to ledge trap, you're carried, like staying upside ledge trap. Right. Now it's embraced. It's like, I'm playing Diddy. I don't really care about playing mid range. I throw my banana and I go back to plucking a new one. I actually am a little bit different with regards to Byleth in that aspect. I think when you talk about Byleth skipping things, I think a lot of people kind of go to recovery, right? Like Leo gets to recover because it's so challenging. Or it's so hard to challenge him because he can just spike you back down. I think the thing that Byleth skips most that is way more important is killing. Because Byleth kills you.
Thank you. Yes, and that is ridiculous. Yes, the character kills in neutral and kills like just obscenely early, period. But it's like it's crazy that the character can kill you in neutral like it does. And that's the thing I'm talking about in terms of the bear and everything. That's like nutty to me.
Exactly. That's why I was so excited when you brought it up, because I feel like even among top tiers, most characters don't kill in a neutral. Like the one that comes to mind is like Roy, right? Roy kills in a neutral. But if you think about maybe even around that level, like Palutena does not kill you in neutral. Palutena gets you in a juggle and up airs you, or gets you in the corner and back airs you, but she doesn't kill you in a neutral. Shulk doesn't kill you in a neutral. Wolf can get a jump read and back air you, but if you're playing the matchup well, that shouldn't happen, right? He's gonna get a jump read from a ledge and back air you. So like almost every character kills in advantage state, but Byleth kills in neutral, and I think that is the difference. That's why what Tony said, right? At a certain point, I was just like, this is what he said. It's like I saw Leo kind of going for the cheese, and that's kind of the crazy thing is that. When Byleth's playing neutral, she can make such minor adjustments and change her neutral to be more cheesy, but it's still a relatively solid neutral because her cheese options are very, very close to her normal neutral options.
Yeah.
Specifically, I think that the way that tends to format is that a lot of characters with cheese setups, whether it's, unless they're R.O.B, of course, is that they generally kill at such a percent if they get their bread and butter cheese combo, like Roy's jab the back air at the ledge, where he kills you at like 60, 70% sometimes if you're a lightweight, versus...
Jab side B.
Yeah, jab side B, of course. Yes.
It's ridiculous.
And then usually like somewhere in the ballpark of like 125% later, they'll start having neutral kill options. And then generally the characters that kill earlier also kill earlier later. In Byleth's case, this is significantly more, or not, I wouldn't say significantly more. it's significantly less, I should say. So for Byleth, like he starts trying to get back throw to forward air or whatever, like 30% is when he's fiending for these grabs, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to take the stock about now. Whereas when you see them killing a neutral, it's usually like 120-ish. So I would say that even though it starts at that percent, like because there's so many steps to when they do get their cheese kills, that usually the finishing percent still puts it within that formula, but slightly less. So
I think the difference there is that like if your character can start threatening the cheese without sacrificing their neutral integrity, then you just start winning neutral, right? So like Wolf, like I said, Wolf can Becker snipe you at 80 and kill you. But if you play the Wolf matchup correctly, you won't get sniped by that. That means that you're not jumping. Now you're not jumping in neutral, and that all but means you've lost the neutral, right? Because Wolf can kill you off of that interaction without sacrificing the integrity of his neutral. Yeah. So like I don't disagree with you. I just wanted to like nuance that because I think that's pretty.
No, I appreciate
it to say. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the big thing.
Speaking of clarifying for nuance, I was a little caught on the spot when I originally phrased the jump in with a forward air. I should have said jump in with a safe aerial period. So
right.
not a huge difference in the where we were disagreeing. Just wanted to clarify that because it's going to sound real silly considering I immediately went to a neutral air. So
Mid-front air is basically a it's also a down air and an up air. Well,
yeah,
why not?
it does whatever
exactly.
it needs to do, man.
Yeah, no, we were talking
Speaking,
about
it shall be done.
That's gonna sound bad later.
Yeah. No, it's good. But yeah, like it's very fascinating to me. Byleth. This is one of the reasons why I personally, when I saw Byleth early on, I'm like, this character is very interesting because it has things like. It seems like right now not everything fits together 100% for the character, like when the character first came out. But I was like, this Nair is like kind of nice. And just like being able to do these certain when you start real like, wait, did you DI that? Yeah, I did DI that bear. Oh, you still died at 60? Oh, okay. Interesting. Good to know, right? And you start realizing, like Ramses' point, like the character is so crazy in mid range. Like it's insane. And to have that and like because again, most characters, right, you usually have a situation where it's like, yeah, maybe you're really solid neutral, but there's still kind of nuances you can get out of it. You can dash away, whatever it may be, right? Then to Ramses' point, usually like, if you're a long range character, like a zoner or whatever it may be, like a Samus, then it's like, yeah, you're going to keep them out, with your shots, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually they get into mid range, and that's where the mix up is, right? And they can go like, I could step back a little bit and now I'm in long range again, or I step in and now I'm close enough to actually do something here. But usually like have some kind of compensation, right? And like usually a lot of characters who are mid range, then if they're like someone's super up close to them, they don't really have an option. But it's interesting because Byleth kind of has the Nair, right, going on, right? It has the up B, which isn't like super fast out of shield, but it's fast enough to get some good damage on people early on. I mean, like, yeah, like you're literally getting like what 30 plus if you're able to get the side B or the bear or whatever it may be from that, right? In those kind of circumstances. And
yeah.
It's like it's crazy too because then you have the soft advantage of juggle situations, right? You get to do look for up B, look for up air, which is even for certain characters it's hard for them to even air dodge through, just period, right? Yeah. And it's like if you do air dodge through it, well, congratulations. I'm still underneath you probably, and I'm still going to hit you anyways for some free damage because anywhere you can go at that point from your air dodge, I'm probably going to be able to cover with a dash aerial, like dash jump aerial. Even though I'm slow, I have enough range. Or like a smash side B or whatever it may be, So I think that's the very interesting thing about the character, right? That because the character's so good at mid-range, even those kind of situations wherein people would try to go back to neutral, it's going to be a bit harder for you too, right? Because they can get there in time just off the range of their tools, not necessarily the speed, in tandem with just being good in neutral interactions where a lot of characters are going to have trouble dealing with that mid-range with Byleth, and that's just
true.
You gotta hold that.
So no, Tony, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So specifically, I think that the game is a series of positions.
I agree. Situations. I think it's situations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's essentially So you want to get to these points or these event points, whether it's in time and or place, and you want to be able to move from one to the next, and you want to be able to do it as quickly as possible so that you don't end up spending an extra turn in a position you don't want to be. So even though Byleth is a slow character, because their range is still very high, they can generally move from like a ledge trap and still threaten you at center. If you go for like a ledge jump, let's say they're whiffing an attack at your ledge jump, they still have enough time to pressure you at center if you ledge jump, double jump towards center. And that's something that a character needs to be able to do, and that other characters in Byleth's speed class can't do. So even though Byleth is a slow character, they still have plenty of range, and specifically, as Ramses said, in the mid range. But I keep it 100. I definitely thought Byleth was trash at launch. So when Leo said he was going full Byleth, I said, well, that'll last until he runs into a good player. So I definitely ate crow on that one.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say, I'll let you go ahead, Ramsey. But
don't worry.
Like I was gonna say too, one of the things that's interesting too about Byleth, when I initially saw the character, I was like, oh, okay, we'll see, whatever. But also recognizing that even the sour spots of Byleth are like still relatively strong was also a big thing for me. I don't know how it was for you guys, but like, because there's some other characters too that kind of have the same range, right, per se, or like maybe longer range than Byleth, but they have problems with the sour spots. Like they don't really do anything there, or it's like, yeah, I can hit you at the range. Like even like Sephiroth, like, yeah, I can poke you with fair here at this range and stuff like that. But there's not gonna be a situation where it's just gonna be outright kill you center stage or like slightly near the blast and stuff like that too. And I think that's the scary part, right, of Byleth, where it's like, even you have certain situations, early percents too, where like you hit someone with a fair and you get sour spot fair, you can short hop into a sweet spot fair after. Like, like there's like a lot of things. Yeah, it's pretty wild. Like when you look at it, it's like, and then you die from sour spot F smash. Like it's at the hilt, it's still strong. So like a lot of those things are very intriguing in comparison to some other toolkits that we see in the game before.
You know what I think is so interesting about Byleth that I think makes the character work is that she doesn't, or they, sorry for all the male Byleth enjoyers, all two of you. The thing that I think makes her work is that she doesn't have a weak advantage state, in the sense that almost like, let's put it this way, because I don't want to say something that's wrong, but like a lot of characters have an advantage state that they're weaker at. Like for example, if you're up against Joker, like in a lot of cases, you can kind of hang out above him, because like he can chase you down, but it's not too scary. Whereas if you're getting ledge trap or when you're off stage against Joker, it's very scary. So against Joker, a lot of what you're trying to do is you're going to try to avoid being off stage by going above it, because it's less scary. But Byleth is slow, so she doesn't have a lot of control over where you're going in this advantage. But because her juggle is good, her cornering is good, her ledge trap is good, and even to some degree her offstage pressure can be good, she doesn't have a bad advantage state. So it's okay for you to move to another type of disadvantage because she's still strong. So if you compare that to like another slow character like Shulk, I can use Shulk as an example. I play Shulk. Right? Shulk has really good ledge trap, really good offstage. His juggle is not the greatest. So if you're playing as Shulk, what you're trying to do is you're saying, hey, you're slow, so you don't have a lot of control over me. So I'm going to use that time to get above you, and now your reward is way less significant. And I think Byleth is really good there. Anyway, I wanted to bring up like a sort of a final topic about Byleth, because I have something that I think is pretty interesting.
Okay.
So something that we've talked about a lot now about the meta is that it's important to kind of like be able to change situations, right? Changing situations allows you to play situations in which you're strong. Now, Byleth is kind of bad at changing situations because she's slow. So what you see Leo do a lot is he positions himself in such a way that he's basically balancing on the razor's edge, where he's like in a position where he's barely still in a good situation, but at any point he can leave, right? Because his mobility is low. He makes it so that he needs very little mobility to leave. So he basically plays it on the edge, and what that means is that like it becomes possible for him to keep up with people who change situations more easily because he does it more precisely. And I think that's a lot of why he kind of struggles with, for example, H's, because H's doesn't really care about precision. It's Mifra dash attack all the way, baby. Yeah. And I think what you can kind of see from Leo is that what really makes it work, right, and what separates him from like the mid-level Byleths is not just the precision, but also how he gets out of the corner. So for a character like Byleth, who doesn't have a lot of control over the situation, she has to retreat a lot because she finds herself in bad situations. And you're gonna find yourself in the corner, and Byleth doesn't get out of the corner. Byleth doesn't have the airspeed to jump to center. I mean, Byleth can roll, but after the roll, what does she do? Right? She can like roll and then jab. It's not a great jab. So what you see Leo do is that's kind of where I think he excels, not just with Byleth, but with every character. Is he retreats precisely, but he makes every retreat count as well, and he kind of makes it like to be extremely precise. And this is like my final point. He doesn't just give up stage and then leaves it uncontested, but when he gives up stage, he is ready to recontest it immediately afterwards. And that means that if he is giving you space, then you taking that space is a mind game in and of itself, because he could be contesting it again, or he could be leaving, or he could be leaving you, in which case you're kind of like feeling silly if you're playing defensively, right? And I think that means that every little bit of space counts so much more, because just taking it is not something that you can do. You have to think twice about taking space from Leo's Byleth, and that really shows in how he plays the character.
Well, that kind of feeds into what my original point behind what you want to be doing. So he can either go in with his Nair, which he's only going to be able to do because you're afraid of his forward air, you're afraid of his dash attack, his forward tilt. So the things that he can hit you with before you can respond.
Just to specify, you mean when he's like reclaiming space, right? Going in with Nair?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So before he goes into the air, he generally threatens you. So he shows you something, and this is always something Leo's going to do at the start of the match, is he's either going to back off if he doesn't think he can contest you with his range, or he's going to immediately put out his forward air like a projectile. So he's basically going to put it out, and then he's going to move back, and he's going to see what you did, so that he has information for next time. And so next time he goes in, he's going to ask himself, do I think that I've conditioned them so that they're going to just delay long enough for me to get this Nair out? And then if I do, then he goes in for the Nair. And if he goes in for the Nair, he is one of the best players in the world at recognizing what the follow-up situation is as soon as it occurs. So generally the reason you don't see other Byleths doing what Leo is doing in neutral with Byleth's Nair is that when you land, you either need to immediately follow up what Byleth hit with Nair, either because it's a true combo at like 0, or because you're about to get a tech chase. And so if you hold shield after, then you're not going to be able to get your tech chase. But if you're just trying to preemptively follow up on your tech chase and your opponent put out an attack, Byleth's Nair is like what, -9, -10? So you're going to get hit because that's enough time that any character can put out like their own short hop Nair and catch you if you didn't shield right away. So Leo is so fast at responding to that decision point that he is able to pick the correct option and place the follow-up situation so that it's whatever benefits him. And likewise, you mentioned that Byleth as a character is limited in their ability to transition from an advantage situation into their next position. So like if they jump out at you with like an up air, they can't fall down. So generally what Leo does is he'll intentionally pick situations so that he doesn't care whether or not he loses them, because the entire point of most of his advantages are so that he's essentially giving the opponent some rope that they can hang themselves with, and then he's moving out to the next spot, so then they're going into this other advantageous position. So even though Byleth can't do it, he can.
Yeah, he's definitely about the rope-a-dope, dude.
That's exactly what I meant with like taking space. And you know, so here's the funny thing, right? Final statement about Leo's Byleth. You know what the funny thing is? Like all of this, like Sephiroth does the same thing, and not in all ways better, because you know Byleth Nair is Byleth Nair and Byleth dash attack is Byleth dash attack, but Sephiroth definitely does the same things, and has some extra layers. And Leo said he was gonna pick up Sephiroth, and I think his skill set is gonna transition beautifully to the character. I'm really excited to see that.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
I think Leo is going to have a magnificent Sephiroth. Sephiroth is also a character that I slept on pretty hard at launch, and now that the general consensus is that Sephiroth is actually overrated and not that great, I can be my contrarian self and say, no, Sephiroth is fantastic.
What do you guys think about Sephiroth now, man? I feel like I think it's interesting how people have gone up and down with Sephiroth, and I think I'll keep it a buck. I feel like a large part of that is with Tweak pulling out the Sephiroth and getting washed in many cases, which I think has much more to be kind of where he was at the time mentally, and when the character would come out.
It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. It's just unfortunate. A lot of times he'd pull it out once he's taken a loss, and you could already tell he was on a downward spiral. And so you'd see the Sephiroth come out and get wiped, and I'm like, yeah, well, there goes Sephiroth, Yeah. But it's like, you see, I mean, obviously Ned has been doing some things here and there with the Sephiroth. Rizesus. Yes. Incredible. So, and of course you got a lot of other people playing Sephiroth here and there, kind of showing what the character can do. Yeah, I am really excited to see what Leo's able to do with Sephiroth. I hope to see that character more, because I do feel that people kind of just felt like, this character is overrated, it's whatever now. And I feel like the character still has a lot of those same tools. I do believe, though, that it's funny that now we're having this discussion where people are talking about Sephiroth overrated and Byleth being like, some people are saying top
really
tier,
good,
right?
Yeah.
But they do have similar toolkits, but it's just, again, funny that when it comes to neutral interactions, Byleth can be like, oops, did I hit you? Oh, thanks for playing, So, I mean, what do you think's going to happen with that Leo Sephiroth, as we kind of close this on out?
So, my opinion on Sephiroth is, first, I think it's important to address the player base.
Mm-hmm.
So, I cannot pronounce the name of the Japanese Sephiroth player, but he... I was actually going to say, I think, Riziasu, and I'm 99% sure that's not correct.
Close enough.
We apologize, but
Yeah,
go ahead, of course.
He is a multiple character user, so his results tend to be inconsistent, since the bracket path he's on is going to determine whatever matchups he's running into, and because he plays so many characters himself, it's basically RNG on what his tournament performance is going to look like at any given point, unless he's just significantly better than the players in his bracket path, is my perspective. So I know that I'm also going to take an unpopular perspective on multiple character using here in terms of how it affects consistency. But this is just into how I evaluate the character. So
okay.
Well, at the very least, for game one, he's going to
I agree.
not play the same character every single week, and then that's at least a third of most of the sets that he's going to play. So then you have Tweak, who, as you mentioned, has an inconsistent headspace that is going to affect his performance more than the actual character will.
Mm-hmm.
He mostly uses Sephiroth at the end of his sets when he's losing, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other part is, so Tweak's biggest enemy is Tweak, and that's not necessarily indicative of how good Sephiroth is.
Yeah.
Because of that. So those factors combined. For Ned is consistently placing 9th and just outside of top 8 at big events that he's going to. And anytime he goes to a regional level event, you're going to see him in the top 8. Not just in the top 8, but usually in the finals.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he came down to Florida. I think it was Infinity Con. He's in finals. There was a West Coast qualifier for Summit. He was there in finals. So, he's consistently placing well with the character. The problem is then when he has to play for top 8 at, a super major, every single set he finishes by doing something head-ass in game 5. So, he'll just charge a B somewhere.
Just fly off in the sky, dude. Yeah, that shit was just funny to me. Yeah, it came out of nowhere. He's like, actually, it was just trash. I was like, oh, shit. All right. All right. Bet. Yeah. He threw that in the book, dude. He did not care. Damn, dude.
So, it's just things you don't expect from Ned. He's a very smart player. He's a very talented young man.
Yeah.
He works hard. He dominates one of the strongest regions in the U.S., Chicago, Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
And he's very good, very consistent. And then, but once he just reaches that specific point, and it's always that specific point, it feels like, he just makes an uncharacteristic gamble that almost never pays off. And so that's why we aren't seeing him placing. So I think that those are outside factors that might affect Sephiroth's placement more than the character itself does. I will say that my perspective on the character changed because of watching Byleth. So watching what Byleth does and realizing, why can't you just do this with Sephiroth? Like, the main reason is that I think Sephiroth has less redundancy on positioning than Byleth does. When Byleth, you mentioned before that Byleth's weak forward air is still very good, and Sephiroth's is not.
Exactly,
So
and that's I think it's really big about the character. But go ahead, continue.
It has niche applications, but for the most part, you're not like, oh yeah, I got weak fair. That's almost as good as strong fair. I get this now, and that's just not what you want to see. Same thing with like a weak forward tilt. Like the position it sends them, it's usually not enough to put them from center stage to the corner. Like they can usually double jump out, and then you have to get a juggle position, and then if they escape the juggle position, sometimes that puts them in the corner. But you have to fight harder to get the same positions that Byleth would give you. So the character is less consistent as a result. I think that the main opportunity of Sephiroth players that they are not picking up off the table is to undershoot their attacks more and focus on using the tips of Sephiroth's attacks, because I think they tend to tunnel vision on getting his strong hits when those strong hits tend to be overshots and they don't apply that mentality to their spacing. Like they don't think, I need to be overshooting here.
Yeah. You know who does that well? I think the only Sephiroth I've seen who plays the engine well, because that's basically what you're saying, right? You gotta play the engine well, understand. It's Rize Asu. Rize Asu is the only Sephiroth who plays the engine while playing and it makes sense. He plays like 20 characters. Of course he's good at the engine because he's never really focused on being good at like one single character. And from what I've heard, and I don't know if this is true, but from what I've heard, he's been trying to pick up Sephiroth as sort of like a main. It's kind of become his, and it shows. I think he is the only Sephiroth who's really at that level, and that's why I'm excited for Leo, because I think Leo can do it too. As for what I think with Sephiroth, I think this character is like really, it depends on how big your top tier is, whatever. I think he's like borderline top tier personally, right? Just around like Snake and ZSS and PT, you know, like around that level. I think the issue with Sephiroth, well, there's two issues. So one, Sephiroth needs to learn matchups. He needs to know matchups. So it's gonna take a while before Sephiroth players start doing really well, because the game has too many characters. Yeah. And the second thing is he's light, and he relies on a mechanic that activates after a certain percentage, which means that, you know, there's gonna be games in which you just don't get started or you get stopped too early. And I think like if you take a sample of like 100 games, it doesn't really matter. But if you take a sample of just 5 games or even 3, you could be in some deep shit. And I think that's kind of, you know, that's important. On a matchup basis, the character is very consistent. In a bracket basis, the character is very consistent. But in a match-by-match basis, the character can have a lot of inconsistencies due to his weight. And I think that's why it's hard to kind of like figure out where, like kind of like Lucario. You know how Lucario, like in Smash 4, it took a long time before you figured out how good is this character, because it's, you know, like on a match-by-match basis, it can be very swingy. And I think Sephiroth is much the same. So I have a lot of hope for Rize Asu. I have a lot of hope for MK Leo, and I really hope that they're going to show some of the things the character can do, because I think Sephiroth has potential to be in like the upper echelon of the game. He's a glass cannon, and glass cannons always kind of like exponentially grow, and that exponential growth needs a little bit of time, especially in a game like this. But I have faith. I have a lot of faith, actually. Yeah. A little bit too much, maybe.
No, I'm with you on that, man. I think that Sephiroth has a lot of tools. I think that, Sephiroth may not have the overall range, like, beauty of Byleth, because, like we talked about, like, the sour spots for Byleth are even still good, right? And so even though Sephiroth may have, like, certain longer ranges, like, it really, like, his threshold is not as big, you know, as forgiving as Byleth. I really feel like ultimately that's what happens between the characters. I feel like Sephiroth has probably more highs, and he's like a bit more he's like, you have to understand the engine a bit more to play him the way that you want to play him, right? Because he can be more particular there, because he's going to be a situation where he's going to be light, right? So you have to be careful there. He has more speed, but he has to utilize his speed to get in those right ranges, versus Byleth doesn't really need to, can kind of be okay with being slightly off or not, because sour spot's still good for me. I don't care, you know. Like my tipper, super easy. It doesn't matter, right? Can I get a sour spot bear? Who knows? Like, you know, like that kind of thing, right? So I think that's kind of the differences there. So I'm actually really excited to see what people are going to do with Sephiroth there. Once they get in a point where they're more comfortable with his movement, because I think that's going to tie into them getting the proper hit of these fairs, getting more consistent with one wing and being able to be like, all right, getting your combos on deck. We've seen Ned, we've seen Risiasu do it as well. A couple others, like, dude, they're getting to the point where it's like, okay, if I have one wing and I grab you, or if I hit you with an air, like, I should be chaining you across the stage, right? And you should hold that.
It's actually insane.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, dude. It's ridiculous. And then, like, I mean, I still believe in my heart that this character is one of, like, the craziest edge guarders in the game. Like, it's insane. Like, obviously, Dare is super insane. Offstage, run off fair is so freaking good. We don't see it. No.
2 words. Ledge, slip. Ledge slip fair, ledge slip counter is going to destroy a lot of recoveries.
It's crazy. It's so good. It is so good. And I think one of the things for me is people are still getting to the point where they need to get better with offstage in this game, in my opinion. And I think that Sephiroth is gonna, like, Sephiroth is one of those characters that's gonna grow because of it, because people are getting better at that. I always am very, very grateful for Melee people to play the game early when they did, because I do think that we'd actually be far behind in offstage and edge guarding if it wasn't for them playing that the way they did, because a lot of the top players, and everyone's just following all the top players at the time, Ultimate, like, they were ass at it, right? I mean, I'll keep it a buck. They were ass at it.
It was so funny to hear Leffen complain about offstage pressure while pressing Ivysaur down air.
Oh yeah,
that was
dude, that was great, dude. That was great. Those are good times, dude. I love that shit. I don't give anyone it says,
That was funny.
It was hilarious, but it was great though, because
it was great. I agree.
Yeah, I think it allowed people to broaden their horizons. Because again, there was a lot of these top players, they weren't going off stage at all. They're like, dude, ledgetrap.com, why would I do that? And then they saw Melee people rob them out of stocks, and they're like, hey, wait a minute, like, I can do this too, right? So, but I still think that we have a long way to go there, and I think Sephiroth's going to bode well from that, in tandem with now people understanding how Byleth can work in this game and applying those same kind of logical progression to Sephiroth. So that'll be good. But man, I think that's about it for today. I know we're at 50, but I know we could all talk forever. But man, this was like a good conversation, just kind of talking about the meta and what we, of course, seeing what's strong here and looking at some of these characters. I am excited to see like Sephiroth actually come into being. The character has not really been in the meta as of yet, right? And it's been a long time, so I know.
You know what's fucked up? Like people are gonna treat Sephiroth as any other sword character and dash shield, and then they're gonna get down smash shield broken, and Twitter is gonna complain. Because you die at 0. It's crazy.
Yeah, man. Dude, I need that. I need people to get hurt by Sephiroth on the big stage. I don't care. I need that. I need that. But any last thoughts, Tony?
I will say I'll make more of a prediction. So I think that Tweak kind of plays Sephiroth more akin to a grappler, and then starts using the sword after he gets a hit to displace the opponent from neutral. I expect that Leo is going to have a more balanced approach to the character. I expect him to use like out of shield nairs as a punish tool, but for the most part, I'm expecting him to base his gameplay around back air as opposed to Tweak's nair plus grab mix-ups. So what are you expecting on that front, Ramses? Just go ahead and send us off here.
Man, I have to say I haven't really thought about it, so I cannot really make a prediction in that sense. I think what we can expect from Leo is more aggressive movement from Sephiroth, and that doesn't have to lead into aggression. I think it's just the movement that's already going to do a lot, because I think that's really where Tweak is lacking most, and where Rize Esu is getting a lot of mileage. Because, like talking about engine, dash forward in this engine implies aggression. So if you want to make use of dash forward as a tool, you got to mix up your intentions. So it's not always dash forward aggression. And I think Tweak, generally, he's like, I don't need to play that mix up. I'm just going to play it safe. I don't need it, so I'm not going to do it. I think, like you said, Leo's going to be more well-rounded. He's going to try to make use of those types of quirks in the engine. And I think that's going to that's just going to be beautiful. And like, again, I hate to be like a fanboy, but look at Rize Esu Seph. You can already see stuff like that in action. It's amazing. It's beautiful.
It is.
Honestly, if you're watching the podcast right now, look it up. Ramses to Sephiroth. Look it up. I promise. It's beautiful, and I think Leo Sephiroth is gonna have a lot of shades of that playstyle.
Well,
That's my prediction.
on that front, even though Byleth is generally a slow character with not great stats for movement, Byleth's short hop is fantastic, and then Sephiroth is arguably the best short hop in the game.
I agree. Yep.
So, just seeing the work that he is able to mix people up with Byleth short hop, and then just taking off like half of a human reaction time length from that short hop is just, oh my god, it's going to be fantastic.
Plus side B landing mix up. Broken.
Yep. It's so good, man.
It.
Yeah, it's bread and butter. But guys,
thank you for having me, man.
Of course, as always, man. Always have you guys, man. We're going to be doing more of these. Hope you guys enjoyed this content. Go ahead and let us know under the comments, man, what you guys would love to hear us discuss next. Please make sure to like, follow, and subscribe. And, of course, hit that bell so you guys can keep up to date with our latest content. But this is all today for Coach's Corner. We'll be back another week, and we should have Charles on that time. And we'll be all four of us, man, getting into it. Hope you guys enjoyed, and see you guys next time. Peace.
See you guys.
Have a good night.